thoughts on Andre Kuzmenko? Where's he going to fit in the lineup to start the game, and just your thoughts on that?
You play with Kopi and Juice, and then I think he'll have an important role in the power play at the goal line with that group. So, whirlwind for him, came in from Philly late last night. So, we'll see. Those sometimes are tough ones, but hopefully he's got lots of energy, and he's a dangerous offensive player. That's something we know about him.
Are you going 12-6 tonight?
12-6.
Who's coming out?
Louis and Jacob Mavari and Burr. Yeah.
Are you? Oh,
I was going to say, what's the process like for coaching staff kind of catching someone up to speed in this quick kind of 24 hours?
Yeah, we try not to overwhelm him at all. I think, there's probably lots. We want to let him play his game offensively. Certainly a few things defensively that we want to make sure that he understands that we do. But mostly he's just got to go. Got to go. Do what he does best, and that's, try and create some offense. But, of course, at some point he'll figure out our defensive systems too.
the modern game, right, left doesn't matter, but do you know if Andre can play right or left? Or
Yeah, he's always been. He plays his offhand. A lot of the Europeans like to play their offhand. Yeah, so it's very natural for both of them. Yeah, and you know what? There's some disadvantages. Certainly, I think there's way more advantages. Certainly, when you cross the offensive blue line, you have the ability to cut in. A little harder to hit the driver if somebody's driving to the net, but it gives you time and space to cut in and shoot, or avoid a stick when you're trying to pass cross ice. So a lot of, if you look at Kucher, a lot of these guys like to play their offhand.
You're changing up the deep pairs now, going back to 44-8 and Evans and Clark picking up across the bench. Just kind of talk about that change and what you're looking at there.
Yeah, Mikey and Gabby have done a lot of heavy lifting this year. We know that. We think we can maybe balance it a little bit more, maybe balance the minutes by going like this. I'm sure there'll be times when Smitty goes down to 4 end of periods, and you'll see, some of those familiar pairings back again. But we just felt like, we're 12 forwards now, we're 6 defensemen, we're at that time of the year. We just try to just maybe distribute the ice time a little bit better, and we really like Clarkie and Eddie together. They've played a lot together. We really like that pairing together. I think Eddie's done a great job with him as a partner this year. So try to make Clarkie as comfortable as possible and get him back with Eddie.
You mentioned a whirlwind for Kuzmenko. With the coaching staff, you get a little over 24 hours to figure out how to fit him into your system, what line you want him on.
Yeah.
What's that process like? Is it a lot of focusing on what the pro scouts send you? I know you probably have a little bit of knowledge of him because it's a division. What's that process for you guys trying to figure out how to fit him in?
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have probably figured it out over some time. We were looking for somebody to play with Kopi and Juice. So it's pretty natural. Q's line, has been set for a little bit. Phil with Fogs and Morsey. And, Turk has had a great run, has had a great season. Slowed down a little bit in the second half. We've seen that, which, again, is not completely surprising. So we're looking for somebody to complement those two a little bit. And, so that part was a pretty easy decision for now.
The trickle down, I guess, would be that Turk goes, I assume, with Hellenius and Jado, two physical big guys.
Yeah.
What could the identity of that line be with Turk, who kind of brings in hard work?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned it. The identity has to be the two big guys getting in there and forechecking. Turk's had the ability to make plays, get under sticks, maybe give them a little bit of speed on that forecheck. So it should be, I'm looking forward to seeing that line. They should be physical, and I think they can do some work in the O-zone too. They should be a line that once they loosen the puck up can bring the puck to the net and have at least one big body at the net, and probably require Turk to take some pucks off the wall, out of the corners, and get it to the net.
And Rob kind of joked yesterday when asked about what line they expect Kuzmenko to play on, that you could be switching it 2 or 3 times in this first game. But do you have a plan to maybe keep that top 9 pretty set with those lines for a few games, or is it just kind of go with the flow?
Yeah, the famous line by Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face, right? So that would be our plan, no question. And hopefully we don't have to change it. Hopefully there's no reason to have to change it. But yeah, and we don't want to be moving things, for Kuzi, he just got here. We want to try to give him some stability, of course, and give him a good run and get him settled in as quick as he can.
You said you're not the most offensive team in the league, obviously, but when you're going through a rush like this where you're not scoring, how much of it is a component of hesitation, like waiting that extra second, or delaying before you're taking a shot, or not a shot that might get to the net was blocking? How much of it is that type of situation when you have with players that might hesitate?
Have something to do with it, I'm sure. I think the stretch we went in where we weren't scoring at all would probably apply a little bit more to that. We are scoring. We had some pretty good chances in overtime. Would somebody like to do that differently? I don't know. Maybe guys thought they had good shots that just didn't go in. So I don't know if it could be for sure, but I think that's, applied. We were getting shut out. We weren't scoring at all. So that's really you start looking around and going like, whoa, and maybe overthinking it. So we're not gonna go down that path yet. I thought we created lots of good chances the last game. Just didn't get enough.
If you watch a Kuzmenko highlight reel, he seems very crafty around the net,
Yep.
even if he's not the biggest guy. What about his game makes him really successful in that net front goal line role?
Well, I think his strength is ozone play. So, I mean, that carries on to the power play. It's an ozone, situation most often. But he's very shifty east-west, quick strides. He can spin, he can lose a player. And then he's a guy, if you look at his track record, who can score goals. So some guys can do those things, and for whatever reasons, they're just not natural finishers. I think, going back, he scored a lot of goals. Over in the KHL, scored a lot of goals. Obviously had the year in Vancouver. So, if there's one thing I've heard about him is maybe he doesn't shoot enough when he gets into those areas. So he's got to be maybe a little bit more selfish. We'll see how that develops. But, we just can't. We have high expectations for him, but this isn't about Kuzi. It's about him getting going. I don't know if he's played a lot this year, so it might take him a little bit to get his engine up and running.
You just mentioned you kind of heard about his skill set and whatnot. As a coach, do you reach out to maybe contacts around the league, or do you kind of lean on your scouting department here?
Yeah, a combination. And, you watch him a little bit as you're playing, and you see, who's scoring the goals against you. And in Vancouver on that power play, he was a pretty integral part. But yeah, we have scouting reports. We've seen them a little bit, and then there's certain people, of course, that have crossed this path, whether it's players, Burr, right, or other coaches down the line.
Zach mentioned looking at his highlight reel, the goals he's scored, and it seems like he's had a lot of success in that power play, in a similar role to what Arvidsson and Velarde had in this,
Right.
on this team a few years ago. Obviously, can't give away too much of the tactics there, but that kind of the role you expect from him, kind of in front of the net and
Yeah.
popping out to create.
Yeah, I don't mind saying that. That's where he'll start. That'll be his spot. And as we're set up with the lefties across, it's pretty natural for him to be there.
Are you concerned at all that the defensive side of the game for him hasn't really been a strong suit? It's something that you can't really play in this team, in this system, without a strong defensive game. How do you kind of balance that with his offensive ability?
I think it's hard to play in the league if you don't have some defensive conscience or defensive ability, unless you're getting into the 100-point area. Yeah, I mean, there's a responsibility for all players, I think, to do that. You have to understand what certain skill sets are, and sometimes there's other players that can complement that skill set and not have to do as much of the defensive work, but there's certainly a standard that everybody has to be, held accountable to.
Does playing the same team 3 times in 8 days change your level of preparation?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, it's almost like a playoff series. They've seen us a lot, go through the video, talk with the coaches, show the players. So at this point, there's not a lot of surprises, and I don't think there were coming into the second game, to be honest with you. Everybody, they know what we do, we know what they do. I guess you could say they executed just a little bit better in the shootout. But overall, I thought it was a pretty strong game, but they controlled the play.
So is there something you're adding to your game tonight that wasn't there the last time?
No, I would just say we would try to do some things more frequently than we did last game. And the players know that. It's easy for us to say, it's easy for us to show video and say, here's where maybe we can take advantage, just like they do to us. But when it's going fast and the puck's bouncing and people are going everywhere, it's not quite like basketball where you can just do a set piece. You got to play within the moment.
When you watch them play last night's game, or if you did watch them play last night's game, do you see them play differently against another opponent than they do against you guys?
No, you know what happens when, and we've had stretches of this too, almost every team in the league goes through stretches where they're just really on their game. And you're feeling good, and it seems like every guy's doing the right thing or pretty consistently, and you're just moving. And when you get into that type of a zone, which St. Louis is right now, they just look the same. And if you look the same night after night, then you're really a hard team to play against. You know what to expect. So I just see them as, at the top of their game at this point in the season, and a difficult opponent.
Any degree of envy when you see Rankin go to Dallas and Brock Nelson go to Colorado?
I mean, yeah, those are really good players. There's no question. And I think every coach, every team in the league would like to have those players on their team. But there's different there's salary cap, there's trade, there's so many things that the managers have to take into account. Not everybody can get those guys, nor should everybody get those guys at certain times in their evolution, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's some pretty good teams that got, some pretty good players. That doesn't matter. You got to go play the games.
Are you grateful they didn't get in the Pacific?
I didn't think. Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I'll give you one. Is that the first time all year that I've actually said agreed with you? Pretty close. Usually I'm giving you this
Stop
one.
giving me starting
You're
point.
usually giving me this one. I'm usually trying to give it back to you. But yeah, no, I would agree with you. Yeah, we're but the Pacific team's pretty strong as they stand. So.